It is an absolute honor to serve this community in this capacity, and I hope that I will make you guys proud as your representative. We've been to several state meetings already, and we've had a lot of conversations. I've been trying to build as many relationships across the state as I can, and the people that I want to say this about those I have met in state leadership. We have some tremendous leaders in this state of Indiana. So before I get started really with my speech, there's some introductions, and I've got this one in bold print because sometimes I forget and I get in trouble. I want to introduce my wife, Stacy. Then I want to introduce my board of works. One just got a text from him said he got called away and couldn't be here, but Gary Hartwig. Both of these guys are, as I've said, you may have heard me say, extremely talented individuals in different areas. We make a great team. We've had great chemistry. I'm really excited about the three of us working together the next 4 years. I also want to mention Andy Perkins, continue on as our city attorney. I retained all department heads, Dwayne Border with the street, Marcus Halterman with the wastewater, Derek Holloway with water, Andy Schatz, our police chief, is here with us. Tom Butler said he would have been, he had to go for a medical, I think he had a doctor's appointment this afternoon. And then Randy Williams, Tom of course, our fire chief, and then Randy Williams is our city project manager. We've had just a couple new appointments to the park board, Kimberly Landis and Ed Richard. We have one addition, I guess, changed at the city council with Amy Rowe. Kennedy served last year, was re-elected as trying to think, Don Garrett, Martin Smith, Brian Goodman all got re-elected. Brian So the city council was pretty much the same with the addition of Amy now. So, and then our redevelopment commission, because of Brett's role as board of works, he left the redevelopment commission, and I appointed Guy Bigler. If you don't know Guy, he's sitting right over here. And I think that covers everything. Oh, and best I have down here. Our new clerk treasurer, who honestly, when I look through the conference room into her office, I'm so thankful that I don't have her job. And she's done a phenomenal job trying to get her feet underneath her, and she's going to knock it out of the park, believe me. There are two other I want to mention, Brian Lewis and Rick Granstead, the county commissioners. The reason I mention them is because we have such a great relationship, working closely together. The county and city, whatever separation there has been is gone. Not that we're going to agree on everything, but we're going to have a good friendship throughout. So I'm thankful for their support, thankful that they're here. And also I see Alan Fisher back there with his CEO of Woodlawn Hospital. So I appreciate you, representing our First Federal. Mark Kessler, thanks for coming. Thanks all of you for being here. Appreciate it. Okay. Can you introduce yourself, please?
Oh, I'm Samantha Sullivan, Commerce from Rudy Dockman's office.
Okay. Nice to have you with us. Welcome to Fulton County. So with that, I'm going to get started. I will say something about Brian because I have to. He asked me a couple months ago, he said, this is the day we're looking at, does that work with you? And I said, that's fine, I think I can make that work. He said, now remember one thing, he said, Abraham Lincoln's Gettysburg Address was 292 words and lasted 2 minutes. He said, if yours goes longer than that, it better be better than that. So, in conclusion, Jay Albright gave me a book sometime last summer, and I'm not a big reader. I told him, I said, I'm going to go on vacation in November. Between now and then I've got harvest, but I will promise you I'll read it on the beach, and I did, and I'm glad I did. It's called 13 Ways to Kill Your Community. And I recommend you look that up and get it. He's offered that book to anybody who wants to read it. It's only like 150 pages, so it doesn't take long. But it was interesting because the author was a former teacher, if I remember this right, Jay. And he taught high school kids, and he found when he asked the question, what would you do, or how do you get yourself in position to be successful? And, they got the normal answer, but he said, when I worded it another way, it really got them thinking. And so the question was, what would you do today or the next few days that could really have a negative effect, maybe alter your life to a point you actually are a failure in life? And it really got them thinking. So the responses were things like, well, I might start, smoking a joint, which will lead to, whatever. I might drive drunk, hit somebody, kill somebody, certainly a life-altering decision. Might get somebody pregnant, or I might get pregnant in high school. That can change your life. Certainly change the trajectory of your life. So I want to stay a little bit on the negative for just a minute. So I'm going to ask you the question, and everyone that's listening or watching on TV, what are some things that you can personally do that would have a detrimental result to the future of our community? I want you to think about that a minute. What could you do that would have a detrimental effect on our community? Because my whole focus is this is a community where each individual has to take ownership of their spot, their space, their role. That's as much negative as I'm going to go. I want you to think about, okay, I thought about that for a minute. Now, what is it that I can do to help? What can I do to make my community better? We had a meet and greet, I think it was last summer, with some of the gubernatorial candidates. And Suzanne Krause walked in, she walked by me, and she knew a little bit of me, and we shook hands, and she said, oh, I just love Rochester. And I said, the greatest thing about Rochester is we're like a family. The worst thing about Rochester is we're like a family. Everybody talks to everybody. Everybody knows everything, except sometimes the truth gets pretty thin. Think about that a minute. That's where we usually have our issues. That's where we have our issues with one another. That's where we have our issues with government, because the truth gets diluted to the point where the truth is thought of to be something other than what it is. There's confusion, there's a lack of understanding, and my role, I feel like, as mayor is to do a great job communicating the facts, getting it out there as often as many ways that I can so that there's a clear understanding. We know that's not going to happen 100%, but that's where you fall in. You can help convey the truth. One thing, and I'm going to list a few things that came out of this book that I feel like will help our community be successful. First thing I think of is speak solutions. We all have our little coffee shop groups, and that is typically the venue to complain, and everybody vents and you get up and leave. I want you to formulate a solution to your complaints before you get up, or invite me into the conversation. Think about how we can resolve issues and not just talk about them, especially if they're not completely truthful. That can play a key role. That's contagious. Just as the negative is contagious, so is the positive conversation about how do we fix things, how can I be a part of it. Very simple ingredient to helping make your community great is to care about your neighbor. Make a habit of doing something nice for someone you know, but maybe more importantly, somebody you don't know. That comes unexpected. That'll change their day. It'll make your day better as well. The other thing we want to do is engage with our youth. I've had many meetings with Jana and Oscar on how the city can reach out to the high school or the middle school. What can we do to engage our youth in our community? They've got energy, as most of you know. As you get older, you lose a little of that. So we need to tap into their energy. We need to tap into their fresh ideas. And we need to let them know that they are a part of this community and their opinions are valued. We need to engage our senior citizens. They have so much wisdom to offer. I'll tell a personal story, but on my farm right across the road was a landlord and his wife and he were in their 80s, and they would sit in the back swing behind their house in the nice evenings, and a lot of times I'd pull in there and he'd get me out of lawn chair and I'd sit and talk to him. And even though some of the stories were repetitive, he would tell you things about the community that hardly anybody else knew because nobody else had lived that long. So when he passed, all that information, all that wisdom was gone. So my idea, I talked to Janet about this, how do we bring the youth of our community together with our senior citizens that have all this wisdom? And that'll be great for the younger people to understand what they've gone through in life, some of the values they've learned, some of the mistakes they've learned. But it also brings the senior citizens back into a role, hey, you're just as important as everybody else. Even though you maybe don't hold a job or you don't feel like you're really actively involved, you have something very, very valuable to offer. Another thing this book talked about was deceive not yourself. Be honest about what makes our community great, but be honest about what needs to be fixed. Shop local. Keep the money in the community. I know we've had a lot of ideas about we need to get this in the community, we need to get that in the community. I know the Save-A-Lot building on the east side of town is one it's a shame we left that. Why can't we get an Aldi's in there? Why can't we get something else in there? But you have to understand these are business decisions by these companies. They have to see the return before they're going to just plant themselves down in the community. So just because we want them doesn't mean we can get them. I'll do my part of selling the community, but, and I actually talked to the Save-A-Lot owner as he was moving out, and he said, I've got one of these up in Knox, and I'd do great. But he said, the problem we have in Rochester is people will come here just to a handful of things. If they need a full cart, they'll drive by my place and go to the big box. We have to support, when we have something in our community that we love that's I don't want to say mom and pop owned, but locally owned, we have to support those businesses or they're not going to be here. Now I've got paint and pick up. Make the place look decent. Take ownership of your property. I know when a business comes into Rochester and wants to agree with me or meet with me or Mike, Ladd, or Jillian, they're going to want to drive through our town, through our community. You're selling that just as you would if you were selling your house. You would not want a cluttered house if you were trying to sell a thing. We're trying to sell our community to outside residents that maybe want to live here or businesses that want to put roots here. So we each have to take ownership in what we have control over and try and make it presentable in the best way that we can. Don't live in the past, embrace change, take responsibility, and more important than anything is volunteer. If you're going to complain about things, get involved, put forth effort, and put your money where your mouth is, quite honestly. And you know, no matter what goals I have, no matter what wheels we already have in motion, and I'm going to share some of those with you, the success or the failure of them is shared by all of us. So I do have to do a little bit of house cleaning. There's a few items that aren't going to be popular, but I promised you that I would be forthright in things that we have to cover. Before we get to the more exciting news, some things that's on my plate right now and we're in the middle of, and it's going to affect every resident, unfortunately, in not a good way. But we have been in contract talks with Republic Services about getting the leachate back into our plant from the landfill. Leachate is basically the water that runs through from rain or snow, that runs through, collects, and we pump it. They haul it right now by truck. Presently, they're going to Elkhart. We're trying to get it back. They haven't seen eye to eye with the previous administration on numbers. We met with them a couple weeks ago, threw out what I felt was a very fair number for a plan. And they called me last week, and one individual, the representative, wants to meet with me one-on-one. Don't know what that means, but I think we have a very fair plan. I think we have a good relationship, or built a good relationship with them. But the point I wanted to bring out on that is the previous administration, the city council had raised water and sewage rates back in November. And it stated in the papers and publicized that there's a 3-phase increase coming this year. And it was mentioned that if we got a contract with Republic, that 3rd phase probably wouldn't happen. Well, as I consult with our financial advisors and our wastewater department head, we decided our margin is so thin that even if we get that contract and we eliminate that phase, we'd probably be looking at another increase in a couple of years. So what I feel like we need to do, and I plan on doing, is staying with that 3-phase increase this year. If we get that contract, that'll give us some buffer, some room to operate, and hopefully eliminate a rate increase maybe for 5 years or more. We don't know, how expenses will change, but that's my plan right now. I wanted to put it out there. The next thing is, years ago, almost 20 years ago, I think they established a stormwater utility. They never established a rate for that, and that is for stormwater structure repair and miscellaneous other things to make sure your basements or your business don't flood. We got to move water. That rate has never been established, and we need it for 2 reasons. One, we're getting behind on stormwater repair, drains and so forth. But the other thing is, we cannot get any state funding without a rate established. So I'm working with Baker Tilly, again, our financial advisors, to do whatever minimum we have to do to open up that door for state funding to help us with some of these projects. And then the last thing I actually mentioned back in March at the debate about the Mill Creek maintenance, which comes to the drainage board. It is something that each individual, each business that drains into Mill Creek is responsible for paying a certain amount each year for maintenance, removal of trees, sediment, and so forth. And it is more expensive inside a municipality than it is outside the country, because you can burn things out there, you can spread the sediment over the farm fields. Inside you got all out, creates more cost, plus getting in to actually do it is more costly. Previous administration had a problem with that, and they had a lawsuit against a drainage board. So bottom line, there's no money in that creek fund to do any maintenance. And I brought this up, like I said, last March, that I was going to have to dismiss that lawsuit, and we've already done that last week. I had Andy draw up a dismissal of that lawsuit, so that's taken care of. There will be a charge on the property taxes. Brian, help me with this. I think in May there might be an assessment for those that live in that watershed, so that we can get some money so that we can do maintenance. Anything, as you understand, that crosses the creek or obstructs the creek is going to cause potential backup, and you're not going to be happy if your basement floods. So water has to go, and on the city it has to go fast, because very little of it permeates the soil. So 3 things I know you don't like to hear. A couple of these things I brought to the previous administration as a question. My question was, how am I going to avoid these? And the response was, you're not going to be able to. Thank you. Appreciate it. So, as unpopular as it is, we have to do what we have to do. Okay, now, more of the fun stuff. With Kimberly and Ed Richards' addition to the parks program, it was brought up at the parks meeting that we're going to have the parks program again this summer, which will include, I think, up to 120 kids possibly. We have a leader in Lindsay Barnes who's going to oversee that with the park board's direction. It's going to be a great thing for our community. I was really proud of Mitch Hayes at that meeting. He said, I loved that when I was a kid. He said, but I think we ought to make it free for these kids. And I totally agree with you. I think it's a wonderful gesture for the city to offer that program again, to allow kids to participate free, because we know we have some kids that just probably could not afford it otherwise. So that's a huge win right out of the gate. I was really proud of the Parks Board hitting that right up front. The last 3 or 4 or 5 months, we've been in discussions about an industrial park. We've also had a private investor offer some land to get us started thinking that way. In the last week or so, we've had some other private investors come on board with that potential, so we can expand and really justify the expense of the infrastructure for that. All I can say is there's a lot going on in that arena right now. Mike Ladd has done a tremendous job, and the FedCo director is very aggressive. And we recently, with the county's help and redevelopment commission, we hired a professional consultant in Charlie Sparks, who now is a team with Mike, and I feel like those two and myself are kind of a team because we're spending so much time together. But Charlie has got 40 plus years of economic development experience, very well known and well respected across the state, worked with several governors. I've been to meetings where people will come up to me and say, hey, I hear he's up there with Mike Ladd, and I said, yeah, man, you got a great team up there. They're jealous of Fulton County with the economic development team we have in place. So I want to thank the county for their, again, speculative position of funding somebody that's not, you don't want to question their ability, but you don't know how desperately you need it. But I'm telling you, we're getting a lot of phone calls, a lot of things that I feel like are going to be happening, and most every other county has a multiple member team on their economic development. So I see these guys working great together. They've known each other for years, and so there's going to be a lot happening. Update on the Blackadder project. We've again worked with the county on an interlocal agreement to get a CCMG grant, which is a 75-25 match, and that boring stuff is, bottom line is we're going to get it done. Finally, after how many years? Many. So as soon as we get warm weather to finish the paving, it'll be ready to put on the market for business expansion. That was a big thing, and that was started even before I took office. The Apache Drive is kind of on hold right now only because of the weather. But that's going to be finished out. Should be mid-late summer, I would guess. So that will be another area where we can possibly market. I know there's been some talk about a hotel and maybe some other options out there on Apache Drive. So that's progressing. I mentioned my work with Deanna. Our relationship was great. I thank her for asking me to be part of the ambassador program that she has, and Randy Wynn, and there's maybe some other teams that are on that council that we meet every month. Very informative. One thing I want to say about what I've learned is we have a great school system. And there's a lot of misunderstanding out there, like everything else. And one thing she tried to let this ambassador group know is, if you hear things, have them come to me. We'll give them a tour. We'll show them. We'll explain everything out to them and why we do what we do and how we do what we do. So I would encourage anyone that has questions or concerns about our school system to reach out to Janet directly, because she would more than love to sit down with you and discuss whatever concerns you. One thing that I picked up on some of my meetings was there's some mayors around that have a mayoral youth advisory council, and it brings in by applicant. We would select those that want to be part of a youth advisory council. We're still trying to learn some of the mechanics of how that works. We actually have a meeting tomorrow to discuss it further. But that gets the kids involved, because there will be representatives at each of our board meetings, our board of works meetings, our city council meetings, where one of those individuals will be selected to participate in each one of those, or to come and sit in and be a part of it, not a voting member, but they'll be in to give input from their perspective. And they will be a liaison between the rest of the kids in the school and even the teachers, because we know that's going to feed to the kids, to the parents, to the teachers. So hopefully it's a win-win for everybody, and I believe that it will be. I know these other communities have had great success with that and just love it. So we're excited about that. Last night at the city council meeting, I had this idea last summer about having a scholarship or an award for students in government class. And it was on an essay. We would grade an essay that they would write entitled "If I Were Mayor." And that would be for senior government students overseen by the government teacher. We would receive those essays without names. The teacher would know who they are, so there wouldn't be bias on our part to select them. And then the first place winner would get a $1,000 scholarship or an award. Second place would get $500. Third place would be $250. There again, I think it's going to be more advantageous to us as a council and to city government than it may be for the kids, because we're going to get a perspective that we don't often see or hear. But I think it'd be good for the kids to get engaged and realize that they are being listened to. So I'm excited about that. I was really thankful the city council voted that 7-0 last night. A lot of discussion about downtown events, enhancing the events we have. Looking again, we talked about this last night about pulling up some old ordinances, changes in ordinances where we can have food trucks, some outside dining. There's going to be, I think there's going to be some outdoor music, outdoor venues, bringing in different bands. I've talked a lot with Julie. We had a meeting last week with Julie and Jillian and a couple from the downtown partnership. So we're trying to improve our downtown events. We've heard other communities that have really expanded those, and as you get more people to your downtown, you get more business interest. We have some vacant buildings downtown that need to be filled up. But if you have these events, you got people getting noted or noticing Rochester and are coming back and seeing these restaurants or shops as they come to these events, they'll come back. That gets the attention of business owners, say, hey, you know, maybe this building over here, maybe I can get in there and make something happen. So we're excited about how one thing feeds off the other there. That's going to be, I think, give us a lot more excitement downtown, especially through the summer months. One discussion, and I think this is something that has some real validity, is a year-round farmers market where we have, most of you are familiar with mustard seed. Some, and I talked to the owner there, and she's excited about this as well. A vendor style model that she has, except with farm produce, meats, vegetables, breads, you name it. There's some hurdles to jump through as far as the food safety, but this has happened in other communities, and those things have just exploded. So I think that would be a good thing, and maybe a good thing downtown in one of the buildings. So we're looking at that. Another area that I was concerned about late last summer, I really hadn't spent any time over there to see how bad the shape it was in, but that would be our public beach. We've talked about that to the Parks Department. We've also got an adult leadership academy that's right now spearheading what we can do to make that a nice place. Right now it's kind of an embarrassment, and we need to do something with the sand. We need to do something with the base out in the water. We need to maybe add some grills, but make it a nice place for kids to be able to go and feel safe, clean. So we're trying to make that a nice area for our community. One of the big problems that we've been heavily involved in is our homeless and our need for some sort of recovery center or a plan. We are right in the middle of that right now as far as discussion. With this recent cold weather, it raised a lot of questions. You know, we have that every year. It's not like it's new to Indiana, but we're seeing a lot of flaws in the way we're set up. So we are going to dive into that wholeheartedly. Pastor Steve's going to help a lot with that. Amy's helping a lot with that. So many are going to be a part of trying to help out not only our homeless from a shelter and needs perspective, but also get them over the hump sometimes you have in life and move them into a self-sustaining position. And that's really the ultimate goal is and sometimes they don't need a lot. Sometimes they just need a little bit of help and they're off. So, but we've got to do something about that. We haven't done anything near to the level we should have in the past. So I'm behind that program, and I know Pastor Steve and I are working closely with that as well as other pastors. I have a goal of trying to get pastors together on a regular basis, and he's going to help me accomplish that, to where we can hear back from them on what we can do, how we can do it, and how we're going to fund it. You know, funding is everything, but we are going to, I promise you, make a difference. And then, honestly, looking for whatever grants we can. Money is an issue for downtown facade improvement or development, getting apartments finished up where we have something to offer. Again, a lot of times business owners will come in if they have a place to live above. So we've got a lot of vacant apartments that need to be finished up, so we hope to be able to find some funding for that. I just talked to Alan Fisher last week. We discussed the Lilly money that the governor announced a couple of weeks ago. That was additional we weren't aware of. We're trying to get him lined up. One of his projects he put forth was a mobile clinic, and we're hoping that we can tap into those funds and get that for him and for our community. I want to hats off to Alan. He's done a great job out there turning something that was annually in the red to something in the black. So appreciate all your work in that. And then whatever further economic growth opportunities coming down the pike. It's one of those things we felt like we need to get ourselves in position to reap a harvest. And you can't do that with a promise that we can get you this. We can do that. They don't want to hear that. Businesses don't want to hear that. They want to know what you have now ready to go that I can be up and running in a year. And we didn't have much. And so we're working tirelessly to try and get those opportunities where we can actually have something to say, hey, the seeds are planted, it's up to you to bring in the harvest, but we're ready, we're set. And so that's what we're trying to do. I believe that's going to to raise the tide for everyone. These are a few of what has been put into motion, things that are on our radar. We're always open to ideas and thoughts from the community. One thing I want to, I'm getting ready to close here. One thing I wanted to read directly from that book, toward the end, one of the closing paragraphs. It says, "The success or failure always comes down to your attitude. Whether you're a student or an adult, whether you're an association or an organization, or whether you are a business or a community. The reason communities fail is because of wrong attitudes. Of all the things affecting our lives every day, we can really only control our attitudes. With the wrong attitude, we can easily turn blessings and opportunities into failure. But with the right attitude, we can turn challenges into opportunities and opportunities into successes." There's a quote that reads, "Whether you think you can or think you can't, you're right. If you believe you can succeed, you have a good chance at success. But if you believe you will fail, you will prove yourself right every time." I believe we will lift the economic prosperity of this community. I believe we will greatly improve the quality of place where you, your kids, your grandkids will experience a greater joy in living here. And I believe without a doubt that because of positive collaboration we have with our city and county government, and that we will continue to grow amongst our citizens, that Rochester and Fulton County will soon be regarded as one of the greatest places to live and to own a business in the state of Indiana. God bless you all. Thank you again for the opportunity to serve, and I look forward to not only your support, but your effort.